Welcome. It's episode 150 of Grow Yourself Up. Can you believe it? 150 episodes. Really delighted to be here with you. And if you're finding the podcast beneficial, please can you leave a rating or a review wherever you listen. Now, today I'm joined by Gerardine Boyle, and I'm going to tell you a bit about her first, and then I'm going to tell you a bit about this episode. There's so much in this around shame, emotional neglect, and generational trauma. It's very rich, and I think it's going to be very touching for many of you. So Gerardine is she's an art psychotherapist. She's worked for over 20 years in adult psychiatry in the HSE. So the HSE is the Irish equivalent of the NHS, and she's worked in private practice. And art psychotherapy has been a key part of her own healing journey and supporting her to trust working without words. She's done a lot of training and work in the diamond approach, and that's helped her support her through a fusion of psychological insight and spiritual inquiry to articulate experiences that had no voice. She's also trained in the hearing voices approach, working with those who have strange or unusual experiences. And this training gave her a deeper understanding of the healing potential of people caught in great suffering. She's also been part of a specialised HSE team delivering Dialectical Behaviour Therapy, which is DBT, which is Marsha Linehan's therapy modality, and she's worked on delivering that for 7 years. That's typically delivered by a team because it's difficult for therapists in private practice to deliver it because it's kind of team-based. And I met Gerardine on a Transforming Touch training. So Gerardine trained as a Transforming Touch Practitioner with Dr Stephen Terrell, who's a world expert in working with developmental trauma, and she trained in Cork with him in 2019. The training has been life-changing for herself and her clients, and she is fascinated by how incredible supporting the nervous system via therapy is in terms of healing on all levels, and you're going to hear that throughout the podcast. And she talks about somatic trust and really learning to develop compassion for your own experience, and how her understanding of her own experience has changed as understanding has come in somatically as opposed to cognitively, and how the thoughts simply reorganize themselves. We know that to be true from a lot of nervous system teachers speak about how your psychological story follows your nervous system state, and Gerardine alludes to this. So Gerardine's website is Morning Light Therapy IE. That will be in the show notes, and all the details about how to work with her, and you can have intensives with her, or you can work online, are in the show notes. Okay, so this is a very beautiful story. Gerardine talks about, she shared very generously about the generational trauma in her family. So I think this is really important because many people think, oh, I had a happy childhood. Like nothing happened, nothing was bad. And that may be true, but they exist under a cloud their whole lives and they don't understand why. And through the generosity of the story, you're really going to hear how some trauma in both her parents' lives really impacted her own childhood, and your experience of the trauma or what's happened in your family will be different. But what I want you to listen out for is the similarities, and how we are only recently into times where people didn't constantly die of things like pneumonia or tuberculosis or typhoid, and we are also early deaths in families has been such a massive trauma that doesn't get talked about. That's happened a lot in my own family. And there's death that Gerardine talks about and how impactful that is. And she gives a beautiful explanation of how things that are not spoken of haunt us. So we can really think about family consciousness and how bringing attention to and talking about the difficult things is just really important. And you'll hear the pain in the story that she tells. So, yeah, I want to sort of share one more thing about illness. In my dad's family, his sisters all got typhoid in the mid-1940s, and they had to relearn to walk, some of them again. those type of illnesses were very common and very impactful for people in the 40s and 50s. So when your parents were born, probably some of you. So really kind of find out about some of your family history if you can, because the understanding of things really helps with reducing shame, and you can really see how metabolizing your family pain via your own nervous system is so powerful. Just so powerful. I feel honored to do this work. I feel honored to do this work in my own lineage. And I'm sending you all so much love. Okay, so let's dive into Gerardine's story and hearing the healing power of how much transforming touch has helped her. Hi, Gerardine. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today. I'm really honored to have you here, and I can't wait to have you share some of your story with our listeners.
Oh, you're very welcome, Cath. I'm delighted. We've been talking about this for a long time now. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, one of the themes that we've been addressing on the podcast is emotional neglect, and how common emotional neglect actually is. And indeed, I think it's been woven into many of our stories, and we kind of now have a name for it, but it was so normalized in terms of the way many of us were raised, that we were just given no access to our emotions, learning to avoid them and suppress them and deny them. And I know that there's elements of that in your own story. Why don't you tell us a bit about you as a child, something about your family background, maybe something about your parents?
Yeah. So I was a very, very, very shy child. And the shyness really is a euphemism for extreme discomfort in the body and shame. But I didn't know I was feeling shame. I just knew that I was shy and that I was short of words. I came from a family of 6 girls, and we were all very good girls.
Yeah.
We didn't have any teenage rebellions, unfortunately. We didn't kind of wake up to our emotions until we got into our, very late 20s at the least.
And where were you in the age order?
I was in the middle.
The middle.
Yeah. So I would have, I would have thought, I came from a happy house. I had no reason to be depressed. I had no reason to be sad. So I thought I wasn't, but so I was desperately hiding it.
Yeah.
How
did you know when you say you were desperately hiding it? When did that become when did that kind of pop into your awareness?
Yeah. Well, I remember somebody saying that you don't know that you suffered or experienced developmental trauma, and that if you don't have memories, that's usually a good indication. So
Yeah.
I know I have very few memories previous to being 11 or 10 maybe. So there wasn't much consciousness of the sadness. But I know as a teen, I was, reading all those Russian books that were completely depressing. And they had one little moment of light in them, and that was enough for me, that there was a little bit of light in the darkness. And listening to Simon and Garfunkel's song over and over and over again, I'm a rock, I'm an island, and not even knowing why I liked the song,
Yeah. I'm an island. Oh, wow.
So, but I was, I could only say in hindsight that I was very lost.
Yeah.
And that I was always seeking. But that was such a familiar state that I couldn't really identify it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And Judith Herman was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she said that when we have complex trauma, it forms our personality. And I think that that's such a huge thing to kind of hold on to, that many of us think this is our personality, but actually it's a set of coping strategies and adaptations.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's very true. Yeah, so it was a very physical childhood. So I was, I sheared sheep, I lambed lambs, I
Wow.
climbed mountains, I played tennis, provincial tennis.
Wow. Amazing. So you were succeeding.
Yeah, so physically I was fearless, but emotionally I was terrified.
Yeah.
But people didn't know because I looked tall and straight and, so it wasn't
Strong.
obvious. Yeah, it wasn't obvious on the outside. And I wasn't much good at subterfuge. I wasn't much good at, covering something with conversation because when I was awkward, I just couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, hide too easily. But all my years down at the tennis courts, Kath, I have to this day recollections of I was fine when I was on the court, but when I was socializing, I was highly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, at that time, I would have thought highly uncomfortable and I shouldn't be that way.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there was the feeling of discomfort and then all those beliefs about how you should be and how you should feel. So it was very hard to um, recognize what you were feeling because I was more identified with I shouldn't be feeling that way.
Yeah. Which is the shame.
Yeah, yeah.
And how was the shyness, or the kind of what you've termed awkwardness, how was that held in your family?
Well, we were we were very merged. So there were six of us, so there wasn't a huge amount of differentiation, so it wouldn't have been noticed that much, or maybe they all had it to different degrees, or um, yeah, gone.
Okay. And tell us a bit about so your parents were farmers, obviously. Tell us a bit about your parents.
My father lost his father when he was 2, so he died
Oh,
of pneumonia.
oh, wow. What a tragedy. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And that it was believed in that day that when you were that young, you didn't know suffering, or
Yeah.
so my father wasn't identified with the sorrow or identified with the loss. But I'm sure I don't know what impact it had on him. He was very playful with us, but probably we didn't really. I don't know. We didn't really connect emotionally in certain ways. He was loving. He was a great hugger. And then my mother was, she was she was the housewife behind the farmer, and she would have suffered depression, even though we didn't really know what depression was.
Yeah.
But she spoke of a dark cloud coming over her head, and not being able to move out from underneath it. And so when she was really small, there was a couple of big glasses. When she was in her mother's womb, my grandmother's womb, she lost her 18-month-old brother died of pneumonia.
Oh, my word. Wow. So what an impact that must have had on her as a fetus.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So they
huge.
talk about having a funeral in your brain
Yeah.
when your mother is grieving, when you're inside your mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in your whole body. I mean, what a contraction this must be.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And so much pneumonia as well. What
Yeah,
tragedy on
something
both
like pneumonia.
sides.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then when she was about 9, I think she was responsible for feeding the pigs, and she was soaking meal for the pigs. And there was a big crowd up from the west of Ireland visiting at that time. And she left it uh, on a place where her 4-year-old brother pulled it over him, and he died from the scalding. Yeah.
Oh, my word. What a terrible tragedy. So she was preparing stuff to feed the pigs, and it was really, really hot. And the little brother pulled it on top of him and died as a result of that.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. How could your mom have ever survived that? Well, I mean, she obviously did, but wow.
Yeah. And then she wasn't allowed to talk about it because my grandfather blamed the visitors for the excitement.
Yeah.
And when my mother said it was her fault, he just told her, I don't want to hear you speak again about that. And that was handed on as well, So yeah, so that was
God, that makes me want to cry, Gerardine. But I mean, what a huge, in terms of a pattern, because can you imagine how much terrible guilt she would have had, and just like, it's obviously a massive accident, so it's not her fault at all. But to not be able to process that, because children process endlessly by talking and kind of needing to move that through their body. So imagine that little 9-year-old being shut down, and how torturous that must have been.
Yeah, and the sheer terror of it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The terror, and also there's something so terrifying about thinking you're so powerful that you've done that without the understanding of that's an accident. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you come across family systems, Hellinger's work?
Yes.
So I did a constellation on that once, and the person who represented my mother was, when it happened, was on the floor, scurrying away like a dog on a wet floor,
Ah, yes.
So it was it's just a horror of what happened, and needing to go away from it and not being able to. So yeah. So
And that's also quite a shame posture, isn't it? Like that scurrying on the floor.
yeah, just I like a wet floor that you couldn't get away on, but no matter how hard you tried,
Yeah, so you're
but
slipping and sliding.
yeah, so nearly
Wow.
lying down, and but the what happened then, you see, she was depressed and nobody knew why she was depressed. She should never have been depressed. That was the story. At 9, I think at 10 years or something, then she went blind and missed secondary school, and she recovered, but she missed out on the education, but she still got to do nursing, and always felt ashamed that she hadn't a secondary education. But she was an intelligent woman, well able to read and converse, but the whole thing about her sadness, Catherine, was there was no understanding of it. She didn't understand it. She was exhausted all her childhood. She went to bed, she'd go to bed halfway through the day and she'd get up again. And then when you'd see her moving, she was moving really heavily. She put on weight as she got older as well. And now I'm realizing, it's only now that I realize that heaviness and the exhaustion was her carrying the grief.
Yes. The unmetabolized sadness has to, like, oh my word, I mean, what a heavy, heavy, heavy story with kind of no outlet.
Yeah.
And no support. I mean, the going blind is so interesting in terms of if I go blind, maybe I can't see it. There's so many like somatic references in terms of like protection in a way. Wow.
And what I would know from the end of my journey, the more recent years of discovering my own body, is that underneath that heaviness that we were very familiar with in our mother was a huge amount of activation.
Yes. Yeah.
A huge amount of activation. And underneath the heaviness was a huge amount of bracing.
Yeah.
But she never knew the bracing.
Anger, probably.
Yeah, she never knew the bracing. She never knew the activation because the heaviness, I suppose, protected her from it.
Yes.
And
there was it doesn't sound like there was any outlet for it.
No, there was no outlet for it. Yeah. Yeah. She had 6 cesarean sections.
6 cesarean sections?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Why?
Well, she only stopped having children because she didn't conceive anymore. a good Catholic.
But why all the C-sections?
Because she was her first child. My eldest sister, went full term, and she couldn't deliver because her spine was almost spina bifida. So it wasn't possible to make the passage out.
Right.
So my oldest sister had the good fortune of trying to fight the way out of the womb and not succeeding, but at least she had the chance to fight.
Yes.
Whereas my second sister was taken earlier. My third sister was a really big baby. So then when it came to me, I was taken even earlier than the other two.
Wow. Okay, and I want to just pause here because I want you to explain in your own words why what you said about fighting through the birth canal is really important from a reflex point of view and from the point of view of developmental trauma. Do you want to just give a bit of psychoeducation about that?
Yeah, so what I imagine from my own perspective is that the cesarean section had a massive impact on me. Yes, I hold my mother's trauma. I'm loyal to her story, and I'm understanding. I'm carrying whatever I carried, whatever I picked up from her. But I didn't get a chance to come into the world in my own timing.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to integrate some of the reflexes on the way through, the Moro reflex. And I would imagine that when I was born, I can't be sure, but it kind of fits the picture, that when I was born, nobody saw the shock.
Yes.
Of entering in that way.
Yes.
Nobody really saw the little baby or understood that she was suffering. So I really think that I was locked in a high state of shock from that point.
Yes. And when you say shock, do you want to explain again to the listeners what you mean by that and what that would have meant in terms of bracing in your system and kind of contraction?
So the babies integrate reflexes as they move through time.
Yeah.
And the second reflex is the first reflex is the Moro reflex. Is the fear paralysis. And in the womb, if the mother is shut down, the baby will shut itself down to restrict the amount that it feels. And if it does that a lot, the fear paralysis reflex is unintegrated and they're born in a state of fear.
Yes.
And the Moro is the second one. And we know the Moro because when a baby gets a fright, it goes, legs out, arms out, and the back is arched.
Yeah.
So what I know from work I've done, I've been lucky enough to do subsequently, is that for me to heal, I had to actually feel that brace, Cath.
Yeah.
And it was so tough. It was like me lying in bed relaxing was me pushing my head back against the bed, pushing my heels on the bed and pushing the base of my spine on the bed so that arch was locked permanently in my system.
Yes.
And left me with a great sense of disconnect from myself.
Yes. Yeah. And that arch, and there's so much here kind of from a physiological point of view and an emotional point of view, because really, I wanted to say something also about the FPR, that the fetus does that kind of contraction in order to not drain the resources of the mother. So I want to say for the listeners, my daughters have had their FPR retained. We've had to do work on that. I have got a retained FPR reflex. And it's very common when there's chronic anxiety and kind of a lot of shame. But it's like, please don't blame yourself if you're listening to this, because it's easy to go down. I spent a long time blaming myself for thinking, why do my children have an FPR or a retained Moro as well? And so we have to kind of hold ourselves really gently as we listen to this content. And I think that there are lots of ways to work on integrating reflexes. Gerardine and I are going to talk more about transforming touch later on, which is one of the ways to do it. But tell us more about, so that kind of the way you understood before you knew all about reflexes and before you kind of worked on healing this. How did your life kind of unfold? So there was the shyness, the shyness, did that ever improve? How did you kind of galvanize yourself to move forward with that?
I think with hindsight, I would know that one way I handled the bracing or the shyness was by falling asleep.
Okay.
So I was very good at falling asleep.
Okay.
You know, my head would hit the pillow at night, I'd be gone to sleep. I'd come in from work, I'd be asleep on the couch. So my system only knew how to relax by going into that sleep. It didn't know how to relax relationally.
Yes. And do you characterize that as being in high tone dorsal? That dorsal is your kind of home from home in your nervous system?
Yeah, I think that would be the phrase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of operating in a functional freeze.
Yeah, operating in a functional freeze and only being able to relax by shutting down.
Okay. And then kind of doing work all week and then collapsing on the weekends. Like, what did this look like for you? Because some people have functional freeze where they work like crazy and then they have a burnout for like 2 months. And some people have it like work like crazy during the week and then collapse on the weekend. I think it sort of looks different for some of us. I stay up late. I find it difficult to get myself to go to sleep.
Yeah. What did you say, Cath?
I find it quite difficult to get myself to go to sleep.
Yeah, well, I do now too, because it's after coming to the surface. What was underneath the dorsal, the activation that's underneath it is after coming to the surface, so it's harder to sleep now.
Yes.
But it's getting easier again as the activation is moving off.
Yes.
And as the bracing is melting.
Yes. Yeah. So you kind of tell us about your career, because you're a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting how all of us are wounded healers.
Yeah. So I started off as I started off in chemistry and pharmacy and lab technician and chemical engineering, and I wasn't too comfortable there. I had a good aptitude, but I wasn't too comfortable. And then I moved into working as a massage therapist and as a shiatsu practitioner. And I think I was a little bit like Leonard Cohen. I learned to touch because I couldn't feel,
Yeah.
So I was very good at giving attention and supporting people to
Of course
in
you
that
were.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was really lucky. I went back in about my 30s to train as an art psychotherapist, which was fantastic.
What made you do that? Like, what kind of woke you up that was the career you wanted?
There was that sense of seeking and being lost.
Yeah.
So I had a boyfriend and he had anger problems. So we went to therapists, and then I discovered, oh, right, therapy. Right, okay. And then I saw people in group therapy and I said, I want that, or, just want. So then I eventually found my way to the art therapy training. And at that stage, I wouldn't have had much words. I'd been in my early 30s. I wouldn't have had much words. And I remember it was very exciting because you were working without words and you were giving expression and freeing yourself up without having to find words. And then I was working with people and supporting them to heal without having the pressure of using words. Of course, I thought that was great altogether. And but in my training, one of the lecturers, he shouldn't have said this, but we were reviewing my artwork and he said they looked like landscapes from hell.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, because now that you've told me some of your history, you can well imagine what you were representing in terms of just everything, what you were holding in your body. But how did that land with you at the time?
Well, I probably with a bit of shame, because I still didn't understand myself.
Yes.
And when you don't understand yourself, it's hard to have compassion.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And
And also, can I just interrupt and make a point here? I think because what you said towards the beginning of the conversation, you said that you felt that you had a happy childhood or that you had a happy life, a happy family.
happy
Um,
family.
and that's, I think, what kind of many people think. They think, I had enough food, I had a happy family. Maybe they're completely emotionally repressed and they avoid everything, but that doesn't register as being an issue. And especially if there's nothing in the actual your generation of kind of, your siblings, if there's nothing obvious, it can be really difficult. But when you've just gone back one generation to hear of the absolute torment that's held in both your parents' bodies, like finding out about family history of parents and grandparents is absolutely essential in terms of understanding our stories and looking at all the generational piece that has to be healed and like what legacy we're literally carrying, because those behavior patterns of complete disconnection from self are so decimating, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like I would have had a very strong sense of being disconnected from myself.
Yeah,
But I didn't know what myself was. But I knew what disconnection felt like.
yeah,
And of course, a massive amount of shame around feeling disconnected, because there's a great sense of there's something wrong with me if I feel disconnected. And you don't even know what you're disconnected from. So
yes.
I wouldn't have known that deep, deep brace then. I wouldn't have known that my back was arched, that my neck was rigid, you know.
Well, you knew, I mean, when you had a massage, you must have got that feedback from your own massage therapist, but really
No,
interesting.
no.
And when you found out, like, I imagine, I mean, like, when did you find out about your own parents' history and how did that alter how you saw yourself or your own story?
Yeah, well, I suppose, Kath, that story came in, was kind of in the mix, but not focused on, kind
Okay.
of, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it was like really hard to connect to the story with words because there was a disconnection between the body and the story,
Yeah.
between the soma and the story. So you could hear the story and, you remain blind to what actually happened in your family, you know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. But I mean, wow. I want to carry forward and
I think that we would have worked really hard to not see. My system would have worked really hard to not see. So
yes.
then you can get the story in words, but you can hold on to the not seeing.
Yes. You hold on to the dissociation essentially
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the splitting off. But it's interesting what you said about what your mother's father said to her about, we'll never talk about this again, because that's kind of like come down in terms of how you hold it. Like we won't hold on to the actual impact of this on our bodies, like the horror.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So tell us more. So you were in your own art psychotherapy training in your 30s. Then tell us the next bit about the story. When did you start going to these silent meditations?
So I'll come to that a little bit later.
Okay.
So the art therapy was wonderful because I was able to work without words. I still didn't have words at that point. Um, I used to support people to explore their images through feeling in their body because I had begun to learn that, but it was very hard to use words, and that came in later. And then I did. It's another approach, but it's called the diamond approach. But we investigated our experiences using words and investigating the body. So that really supported me to find words. It actually supported me to identify the superego. I didn't
Okay.
know that I was, crippled by a superego at that stage because I was just crippled,
Yeah.
emotionally kind of. So then I began to identify some of the beliefs that were shutting me down, or the way that I was able to become articulate was to actually name when the judge was present in those explorations. So that really helped me.
And tell us about some of those beliefs, because I know they're going to be common beliefs which come from, you could call it your perfectionist part or your super ego, like that part that thinks we can't be human.
Well, I'd say a bit more about that with the meditation. I can't think of a specific example now, but it would just be talking about something, and my mind would be basically saying, "You're wrong. You can't say what you're thinking. That's not right." It would be a really, and if I listen to that, it's very hard to speak then, So
Yes.
in those practices, I did the opposite. I actually spoke what I was ashamed about, and I'd say, and now I'm ashamed about this, and now I'm ashamed about that, and now shame is telling me, my superego is telling me this. So that really helped me to begin to voice myself.
Yes.
And the meditation probably came on around the same time, or maybe I did that for 14 years,
Wow.
and that was 6 weekends in the year, plus more time. So it was a lot of hours every year, but it was very valuable. And a lot of therapists on it, and a lot of ordinary people as well. I was an ordinary person, I think, when I started. I wasn't a therapist.
Well, we're still ordinary people, even
I'm
when we're
still no,
therapists.
definitely, but super ordinary. But it wasn't a therapeutic training.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I
It
understand.
was an
I understand.
investigation, exploration. And then I came across the meditation. Oh, I had been meditating. I was in India for about a year, and of course I was seeking.
Yes.
I was looking for something. I was doing meditation practices. Um, and then when I came home, I found a Buddhist group in Ireland, and I'm in Cork, and it was all the way up in Galway. And I used to go every bank holiday weekend. They had a meditation retreat, so I used to drive up, and it used to be like my car had wings.
Wow.
Just get there, and
And Geraldine, can I ask you, because I personally find silent meditation quite punishing, and with developmental trauma, because of this, there's often so much shame. Like, how did you endure that?
I think that what happened on those meditation retreats was I every time I left the retreat, I felt more connected, because when I was away from the retreat, I was completely in my head and not
Okay.
in my body. So it gave me the capacity to watch my thoughts and know my thoughts, and then a little bit more connection with the body. So it definitely was nourishing. So I went there with great ease. So then, so that was a Zen group in Ireland, and then I met my husband. I came to love late because I was a bit shut down. So
I
came to love
understand
very,
that.
yeah, came to love very late, and then we had. Oh yeah, so then he was in the Theravadan Thai forest tradition, which instead of the original tradition was Zen, and in Zen you cut your thoughts. In Thai forest tradition, you watch your thoughts.
So, sorry, say that again. In Zen, you do what?
You cut your thoughts. A thought comes and you cut it.
You cut it off. Okay.
Yeah, and in the Thai forest tradition, you allow it and you investigate it. You know, and so it was a much better way of getting to know what was really happening in your system or in your thoughts.
Yes. Because the cutting seems quite aggressive.
Quite aggressive. Yeah, yeah.
And did you move traditions then?
So I moved tradition then, and as I mentioned before, I at a certain point discovered what my base thoughts were, what the ones that were informing my whole system, which was you're pathetic, you're useless, it's hopeless, things will never change.
Yeah.
So when I was lost and depressed, those were playing constantly.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have heard them, but I would have had all the feelings associated with them.
Yes. And that's all shame.
Yeah.
And I think, thank you for sharing those thoughts, because I have similar thoughts like that. And I think so many of us just exist in this kind of swarm of shame, basically, and unknowingly of kind of chronic shame, and do everything to try and get away from that, actually. But really, we have to befriend it.
Yeah. So Kath, what has been fantastic, I've said to you that my learning has accelerated in the last 5 years because of the transforming touch, the somatic support through
Yeah.
that. But now I know that vortex of thoughts was actually energized by the brace in my body that I could never feel.
Yes. Do you want to say more about that?
Well, it's like if your thoughts are whizzing around the place and they're really negative and they're hurting you and they're uncomfortable, they're not coming from nowhere. They're coming from the wound.
Yes.
And the wound is held in wherever your body has either braced or contracted.
Yeah.
So they get their energy from that. And when the bracing goes down, those thoughts reorganize themselves naturally.
Yeah.
You don't have to influence them or control them or be positive. Like I was caught in very negative thinking. I'll say 10 years ago. I can't remember now. Something like 10 years ago. I'd wake up in the morning and within minutes I'd have like a bundle of negative thoughts in the front of my head. And I remember telling my husband, and he said, it's a shame that you think like that, because he doesn't think like that. He wouldn't be judging himself. Might be judging other people sometimes more easily, but different personality. But so I decided to do something about it then. I was meditating and I'd wake at 5 o'clock full of energy, but my thoughts weren't too happy. I'd get on a bike, I'd cycle 3 miles to the beach. Every moment I turned my mind into the present moment, like tree, sky, road, bird, whatever my senses picked up. I'd go for a swim, I'd cycle back home, and I'd go into work for 9 o'clock. And I'd say it took me about 8 months to quieten my mind.
Okay.
So my mind got quiet, and then I remember cycling in one day, and I heard a lamb bleat, lovely sound, and my mind goes, I go lamb, and my mind goes, oh, your husband doesn't have to do this, because his mind doesn't turn down that road all the time.
My husband doesn't either do that, by the way. I mean, but I feel much more like you. But yes, carry on.
Yeah, so I quietened my mind with practices.
Yeah.
Now, the monks practice differently. They don't turn their mind away. They know it, and eventually the mind turns itself. So they soak like if you turn into, the negative, or if you turn into the judging part, or they soak it in awareness. And then eventually, because of that relationship, it organizes itself. So I was using it like a technique. I was saying, my mind goes there, right, I'll turn it back now. My mind goes there. So I gained some peace. And then many years later, Cath, when I started receiving the transforming touch, my mind started to get active again. And I said, oh no, I'm going to have to practice moment by moment by moment to come back to myself. And what it was the work was opening up the deeper story, and the mind eventually calmed itself because the system calmed itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and if I'm sorry to interrupt here, because I think that thing about like lots of listeners will know about polyvagal theory, and that thing about what Deb Dana says about how your psychological story follows your state, your nervous system state. And so you're talking about shifting a state to having much more regulation on board. So then there's not so much mind activity, essentially.
Yeah.
And you're also talking about that there's a feedback loop, because with your practices, you change that as well.
Yeah. But I think the wonderful thing is that when I truly got regulation on board, the mind truly quietened without a strategy.
Yes, without having to kind of do your 3-mile cycle, your swim, constantly diverting your mind back to the present. Yeah.
And that was because it knew a little bit more about being in relationship.
Yeah. And
Whereas
about
my
safety, it
system,
sounds like.
yeah, my system didn't know how to be in relationship. It knew how to seek relationship, or how to be seeking to be in relationship, or trying or efforting to connect.
Yes.
And then when I had more regulation, you know, relationship got more natural.
And also it knew how to be in relationship in a structured way of, I'm the therapist, I'm delivering this.
Yeah.
Because obviously you were doing a lot of good work in your service in Ireland.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so under sort of certain conditions, it knew, because that was constructed maybe.
Yeah, yeah, and it was, the beauty of working with people without words, and the nourishment for my heart when they softened or opened, or had a healing movement. So my system was very nourished by that, but hadn't was just slowly learning as I was with people, and but it's just the depth of learning that has come through somatic trust. I remember when I was doing the training, um, I, I remember I was working with two people, and I found them hard to work with, and I thought I should be able to work with them. They're nice people. This shouldn't bother me. You know, you'll be okay. You should, you should, you should. So I worked with them for a weekend, and then I came back 3 months later, and I was placed with the same people. And at a certain point, I recognized that was experiencing absence of somatic trust.
Yeah.
And in acknowledging that I was experiencing absence of somatic trust, I was actually able to trust that I didn't trust. And then I was able to negotiate different partners, and, negotiate a different situation. And I couldn't do that when I thought I should have been able to handle it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's the beauty of trusting when you don't trust, and that's
And
that it's
allowing
in the
that.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really honoring your experience and turning towards it, because that's a key thing about not avoiding the experience and actually not suppressing it, which is kind of what we were talking about around emotional neglect, because that piece around really healing the emotional neglect comes back to so much how we treat ourselves, like
yeah,
turning endlessly to our own parts and allowing, not constantly judging us or trying to be like good, and nice, what you said at the beginning. And tell us about, you talked about your mum and heaviness. Tell us about your own journey with food, and how that has been kind of part of the picture, and how you kind of grappling with that.
yeah. So I find it remarkable, Kath, to have an idea now about addiction, like my own experience from the inside. I'll just take off my jacket there. There. So I was, my mother was obese. She got obese on her birth cert. So I was heading for obese myself. I was, fit and athletic, and then I wasn't, I suppose, when I hit a certain age. And I always had a sweet tooth, and I always tried to organize my sweet tooth. And I might have weeks or months when I wouldn't touch sugar, but I'd go back to it again, and I'd have a sweet tooth, and then I'd take chocolate, and it wouldn't be one, it would be finish everything, and then I'd have a headache, and then I'd be sorry, and all that. And then again, with the transforming touch, I recognized that the tension in my body that I was never able to feel, all I felt was disconnection, was what was driving the addiction. that what was underneath the tension was nerves really alive, and they were just craving comfort. So it was pushing me towards sugar. And there I was in my 30s, 40s, 50s, expecting myself not to take it, when sugar or overeating actually ameliorated, if that's the right word, the unfelt tension.
Yes. I honestly think that we don't talk enough about how sugar and food addiction is so linked to early trauma, and how the food, I have often said that food or sugar is a hug from the inside. And it doesn't have to be actually chocolate or like a sweet. For me, if you give me like something with white flour and butter,
Yeah.
salted butter, that has the same impact physiologically in terms of comforting, like actually giving physiological comfort. And if we haven't had soothing in our childhoods, food is always there. It's like the ultimate soother. It's accessible, and it changes your chemistry, like your biochemistry. Once you've ingested something, is changed.
So what I'd be considering, or what I considered as I got to know my tension better, was that, oh yeah, so something would happen, some emotional thing would happen that in the past I wouldn't have recognized, but I'd have fallen asleep later. I wouldn't have noticed if somebody insulted me. I wouldn't have noticed what the difficulty was, but I'd fall asleep later. Or I'd desire sweet food and couldn't stop myself from taking it. I'm not sure where I was going with that now, Kath, but it's, yeah. So somebody insults me, or I feel shame.
Yeah.
Something you said and I feel exposed, or something you said and I can't connect to my natural capacities, and I feel shame for being so ineffectual, or, without words or whatever. Your cortisol shoots up.
Yeah.
And then your blood sugar goes down. And then you have a craving to balance your blood sugar, or else the cortisol is so activated that the tension that is in your system is also being activated. So it's your body really, really pushing for balance.
Yes.
And I think of all the times I thought I was so stupid for not being able to not have it, And here I am, it's taken me 55 years or 57 years to say, right, so this is what was happening when you were berating yourself for being so ineffectual.
Yeah. And I think that I want to hear more about your journey because I know you've had periods of like complete avoidance of carbs and everything, but my dad was an alcoholic, and I went to a naturopath once here in London, and he said that he thinks so much of alcoholism or addiction he was speaking specifically of alcoholism, is about a desperate attempt to balance blood sugar.
Yeah.
And I found that such a compassionate way to view it. And when we have had trauma, our systems, our blood sugar responsiveness and our cortisol are often deranged because we had so much stress in our system for so long.
Yeah.
And, so the system doesn't really work properly. I know that my system is very responsive to sugar. So I need to be careful to eat like vegetables and protein. And if I have sugar, my system is much more reactive than someone else's system where there's a more steady blood sugar pattern.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's normal, isn't it? It's so physiological.
Yes. So physiological. And it's so like cravings are a real thing.
Yeah.
And where have you landed now with that?
I love that it's physiological. I love that shame is physiological because of all the years I had of trying to master it using my mind.
Yeah.
But it's physiological. It's what gets lit up with your cortisol, with your blood sugar, with your nervous system. When it's activated, it's in there already and it's activated. And I mean, it makes my heart sing when I'm with my clients who get out from under shame, because they're connected more to their body, whose self-harming disappears, whose suicidal thoughts disappear, who can access more skills, who can be more skillful because something is changing in their physiology. And I love saying to them, now see, when you couldn't do it, it wasn't your fault. You
Exactly.
just didn't have enough regulation. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Whereas whenever you've got a lack of capacity, you always think it's your own fault. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
And especially for mothers listening, um, things like rage, all of these things are physiological. But
yeah,
everyone, there's so much shame attached um, to experiencing these. I mean, perfectionism is also physiological. It's coming from that place of sympathetic activation. And tell us now, where are you with your sugar and carb addiction now? Where have you landed as a way to have peace in your system, or what works for you now?
yeah. So
If you're happy to share.
very unusual place. Now I only eat meat. So I don't eat any carbs. I eat a high protein, high fat diet, and I have no cravings, except that now I have the capacity now to actually identify the emotional cravings
Yes.
because I'm not messed up with the sugars, so I can see, oh right, I'm going to crave something later, or oh right, I know how my body's going to react. So it's like knowing my own nervous system better. So fantastic eating only meat. If I go back to carbs, I know I'd put on weight. I can't tolerate it. So I'm very strict. I don't take cheese or cream, or it's just meat, salt, and water. You
Wow.
know?
And no
Yeah.
tea or anything.
Black tea is my treat.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think that's because your system is very sensitized to sugar and carbs?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think, they often talk about in the carnivore community that you've got abstainers and you've got people who can't abstain. I'm someone who can't abstain probably for that reason.
Okay. So
Sorry, did I get that wrong? I have to abstain. Sorry. I can't moderate. Sorry. Yeah.
yes.
I'm not able to moderate. But I can abstain.
Okay. Um, and it's interesting because I did a period of time in a 12-step fellowship called Overeaters Anonymous, and they have an abstinence program where they suggest that you give up sugar and white flour, and
Hmm.
white flour for the addictive properties of white flour, what I was talking about earlier, like with bread or scones or whatever with butter. And it's for similar kind of reasons around the physiological craving that gets set up for things. But I want to kind of say to any of the listeners that this is not advice that we're giving you about how you should treat your own eating. Please, listen to your own health professionals that support you with your eating. I do think, though, that there's more that will come to light around how we are susceptible to. I've read some research about. Well, certainly we know that addiction is linked to ACEs, and that you're much more likely to have addiction when you've got childhood trauma. But specifically around sugar and carbs, I think there's also a lot of stuff talking about early developmental trauma and how we might seek that out. Anyway, I find it really interesting.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I would say from what I've done hours and hours of the high protein, high fat approach, research on it, and bread converts so quickly to carbohydrates, so quickly to sugars.
Yeah.
So many of the foods convert so quickly to sugars. So for me, maybe if my system gets stronger, I'll be able to go a little bit broader sometime. But at the moment, um, that's my way to health at the moment.
Yes.
And I look forward to the day when I will wake up at 5 o'clock full of energy again, like I did in my younger years, and I'm hoping that because of all the healing I've experienced, and because of eating this way, that the two things will come together to support me to be healthier.
Yes, I have heard. I've actually heard some people talk about, with Transforming Touch specifically, that where they previously had a gluten intolerance because they had a leaky gut with gaps between their gut, that they can tolerate gluten and it doesn't impact their system in the same way because they've got regulation on board. So I think there's so many opportunities for like more regulation, changing everything about how our system operates. So I'm just conscious of the time, and I've loved hearing all the details of your story, but why don't you tell us a bit about how, so you're based in Ireland. Tell us a bit about how people can work with you. Tell us about Transforming Touch.
Well, I work in the health service part-time, and I have a private practice in my own house here in East Cork, overlooking the harbour. With the Atlantic behind us, it's beautiful.
How wonderful.
Yeah, that's where I used to cycle to. And so I treat people here, which is beautiful, using the therapy table. And I also treat clients internationally via Zoom, because we discovered that even though it's different, it works equally well, because you build up safety and relationship through the process via Zoom as well. So
just I want to clarify that for people. What you're talking about is receiving intentional transforming touch. And I do that. So I have a therapist internationally who I work with.
yeah.
And I receive transforming touch that way.
Oh, that's
And I
lovely,
receive
Cath.
other touch from other things, but that's really helped me.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I continue to receive it weekly from a colleague in person at the moment.
How wonderful.
Yeah, so it's really, I really feel like everything is continuing to unfold, and really getting to know my own nervous system. And instead of being shamed because you don't know it, it's like just knowing it and saying, oh, this is the way it is,
Yeah.
and making different choices, and being able to, go to family events without falling asleep, or having way more ease, and a whole lot of things like that. So it's a joy for me. So I have lots of spaces if people are interested in one-to-one Zoom sessions, and they could also come over to Cork, fly over to Cork, and have an intensive, stay local, and experience an intensive over 2 or 3 days, and something like that if they wanted to. Yeah, and.
And tell us about, what we've been talking about is Stephen Terrell's modality, Transforming Touch, which is a wonderful, wonderful approach to working with developmental trauma, which I'm also trained in. Luckily for those of us in Europe and the UK, there's a training in Ireland, and there's a new one starting next January.
Yeah, starting in January on the 14th and the 17th of January, module 1. And it's not only for therapists, it's for parents, it's for anybody who's looking for their own healing.
Yeah.
Because when you're on the training, you receive about 6 to 8 sessions over the 4 days, the 3.5 days. And what I notice when people come into the training and they're finished 12 months later, literally their complexion is different.
Yeah.
They've got more color in their face, they've more light in their eyes, and so it doesn't have to be for therapists. It's a wonderful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful work.
Yeah,
it's really very beautiful work. It's made a massive difference to me. And that's in Dublin, so it's easy to get
in Dublin.
to.
Yeah, easy to get to. Fly into Dublin, and it's so Transforming Touch is a regulation-focused therapy that uses safe touch to heal developmental trauma, and as you said, developed by Stephen Terrell, and works with a 7-point protocol to build attachment and somatic trust in the body.
Yeah, and because he teaches that when you're lying down, so it's typically done on a like a table, that's when we're in our baby state. So the practitioner is very, very careful to tend to the relationship with us as the client very beautifully, and that makes an immense amount of difference. So there's really attachment healing there. And then also some of the stuff within the protocols, there's attachment, like somatic stuff for our own bodies, healing attachment with our body. That makes sense, like the limbic installation.
Yeah. It's very simple and it works, which is remarkable. Just don't know how it works, but it does work. And yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so this has been just really, really wonderful. Thank you for the generosity of what you've shared with us, because I think lots of people will recognize the story of the kind of happy childhood, happy childhood. And then, but there's just so much generational trauma, and also what you talked about pneumonia. We only recently into a period where people didn't die from all those type of diseases all the time, and it's just so impactful, so impactful, all that loss and early death. So thank you for sharing so generously. I know this is going to be really received really well. So thank you so much for joining.
You're very welcome, and I'd be delighted if it's received well, because I'm just not sure about telling my own story. I haven't done it before, so I'm absolutely delighted if...
It's been an honor. It's been an honor to hear it.
Yeah, because I have been just a little bit nervous, but been myself at the same time, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting me with that.
Yeah. Lovely to spend time with you, Cath.
Thanks. You too.